as growing up, we had different personalities.
We did. Very different.
Yeah, we still do, but to be grateful for the way God has designed other. And because I have a lot of weaknesses that Anna's very strong in, and it's such a blessing to not be like, oh, my little sister is so like strong. But I loved how she would like know what we should do, like standing alone. She was like a dare to be a Dana. She was like willing to stand for what was right.
And Priscilla was the nice one to say, well, we need to make sure that we stand in love. And always being kind.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It is Friday, October 7th, and I have somewhat of an update, apparently, from some sources about Anna Duggar and her feelings about Josh Duggar's appeals and kind of where she's at in her relationship with him. Now, these are not coming from any of my sources. This is actually coming from an article on InTouch, but I want to tie the sources' statements back to documents from court and just sort of figure out what could have happened here and if this means that Anna might potentially consider moving on from Josh, because thus far I hadn't heard that anywhere, but a lot can change in a few months. So let's dive into Anna Duggar considering leaving Josh. And if you haven't noticed, it's completely fall outside, so make sure you grab some hot coffee, get on that nice warm sweater. Let's get started. Before we do me a huge favor and give this video a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to my channel if you have not yet subscribed, and turn those notifications on so you know when I go live or when new content loads. And as always, leave some comments about how you feel about this story if you have something to say. Let's talk about what the news is out of Anna Duggar. So we noticed last week that Anna had deleted her Instagram. Anna has not deleted all of her social media though. There is still a Facebook page, Anna and Josh Duggar, and there is also her Twitter. Her Twitter account is still active, though she has not tweeted anything since June. Her Instagram account was her primary place where she posted, and that is now completely missing. So according to InTouch, it says that she's coming to terms with a possible future without Josh Duggar. Okay, well, I mean, that's good, right? A lot of people I've talked to have said that there's a process that happens for sometimes spouses they have to go through to figure out once the reality of everything sets in and they have the dust settles. Maybe that's what's happened here. But it says that Anna is coming to terms with his sentence after he's been found guilty. Okay, so he's coming to terms with the sentence. The sentence, not necessarily life without him. The sentence. So we already knew that he was sentenced. We also knew that he will be away until 2032. So she's got 10 years that she needs to manage all of this without him. She said Anna doesn't want to get her hopes up, and while he'll always be the father of her children, she's not sure if there's a future with Josh. As far as I know, she still communicates with Josh, but in her heart, all she has left is her children and her faith. Okay. So it sounds like she doesn't want to get her hopes up that he might get out of this through the appeals, maybe, and that while he'll always be the father of her children, she's not sure if she has a future with him. So that tells me there is a thought about her potentially moving on from Josh, because this sentence isn't just about 10 years, it's actually about 30, because he's on supervised release for 30. So her life would be flipped upside down for 30 years. It goes on to say, the source goes on to say that she's working hard to accept that he may not be part of her life in the years to come. So she's working hard to accept that he's not going to be around, that life has changed. I mean, this is a big shift for Anna. And I guess there's a lot for her to consider here. And then they also, another source discussed why she might have deleted her social media. And this is what they said. Anna wants nothing more than to check out and forget everything about this nightmare that Josh has brought upon her and her children. She just wants to move on, and that's one of the reasons she's not on social media anymore. It stresses her out. I can definitely understand why she wouldn't be on social media. There's been a lot of vitriol towards her, but I also can understand that it's probably hard for her to read about everything that's happening with her husband, and I can see why it would stress her out. She, at the time, though, she was still supporting him a lot, and I think if she was less supportive of him or decided to leave him, I do think there would be more support for her online than there is currently. I think at the present, with her staying with him, that's where a lot of the negativity towards Anna comes from. It doesn't have to come from that people hate Anna, they just want her to leave. At least that's what I see, in my opinion. But apparently she also deleted her social media because of the appeal. So it says that the added emotional strain of his attorneys appealing the case is something Anna doesn't want to deal with. It's interesting that she says Josh's attorneys appealing the case. It's not Josh's attorneys that are appealing the case. Josh cannot appeal the case without his attorneys can't appeal the case because they want to. Josh has to consent to appeal. So when it comes to what she thinks about his conviction, this is what they said. Of course, she prayed that Josh was wrongly convicted, that he had changed his ways and was innocent. But he was found guilty, sentenced, and she accepted it. This was a nightmare for her. It's been very difficult for her, and while the appeals may be necessary for her, it just feels like it's dragging this nightmare on. So it sounds like Anna wants closure, and she just wants to be able to move on with her life, and Josh appealing this is causing her undue stress. And she, it sounds like, would prefer, based on the way that they're saying this, is that they would prefer, or she would prefer, that Josh take responsibility for what he's done. Obviously, yeah, it's tough because he's changed his ways. Oh, y'all, don't ever put that in the same sentence to what he's done. Like, if you accepted that he was doing that in the past, I hope Anna gets help. That's all I hope out of all of this, that she gets help. So what I think could have happened here is that she might have been misled and they downplayed what he did to his sisters because the Duggars had a history of doing that. I've spoken to a lot of people that were around the Duggars during that time, and the story is always the same, that it was minimized and really downplayed by what he had done, and to not only his sisters, but also to the other person, and that his issues were isolated to like not a very long period of time, that it was just that he was young. So it was very downplayed by them. And Anna might have gotten that version of it, and she might have believed it. And that's interesting, right? But then he cheated on her, and she then took him, and we find out about the other lady that accused Josh of doing some stuff, and she dealt with that, took him back, and had more kids with him. So it's taken her some time to wake up, and maybe she's waking up a little. But when she wrote her letter in March, this came out March 7th. So it's October 7th, so this was exactly 6 months ago. And when she was in March 7th, she was talking about how happily married they were. She talked about what a great provider he was of her. And she said, Joshua worked hard to provide for me and our now 7 children. But the happiest part of the day by far is when Daddy comes home from work and his cheerful voice fills the house. Hey guys, how's it going? What did you learn in school today? Are usually the conversation starters in between greeting each of our children. He's an engaged dad who gladly throws a football with his sons, listens to our daughters play a new song that they've learned on the piano, and helps answer homework questions or lends a hand sweeping up spilled crackers. He's a kind, loving, supportive, and caring father, and a husband, his primary focus in life. That was 6 months ago. She was praising what a good husband he was, what a good father he was. And then she said, "My children and I rely on Joshua for financial, emotional, and physical support. Many others depend on Joshua too. He's a man who frequently volunteers his time, services, and resources, striving to contribute to our community and people in need." You know, she wrote this impassioned letter to the judge to get lenience. What she went on and said about him was that, you know, he was this great person and that he helps people with their car lots and he's always there to do the right thing for people. And, you know, she says, "I ask that you consider reuniting us as a family soon. I understand the seriousnness of this matter. However, I respectfully ask that you take this letter into consideration." So at the time, I don't know that she was actually maybe she was encouraged to write the letter. Maybe that's, you know, I don't know. So that was 6 months ago. Now, what happened after that was that Josh was sentenced. And the sentencing was 2 months later. And not only was he sentenced to 12 and a half years, but the judge placed conditions on him that would limit his contact with his children and where he lives for the next 20 after he gets out. When Josh gets out of prison, he'll be 44 years old, and he will not get off supervised release until he's 64. Anna will be 64 as well. That's a long time to live in limbo. But it says on his conditions of release that he shall have no unsupervised contact with minors, and that includes his own children. All contact with his children must be supervised by his wife, his parents, or another individual approved by the PO. If there's a concern about potential or inadvertent contact with a minor, function, or event, then he shall get approval from his PO about tending that event. He has to go through, he has to submit his person, residence, place of employment, vehicle, papers, computer, and electronic communication or data storage devices or media and effects to searches conducted by the PO at any time. He cannot have a computer or any other electronic device that has internet or photographic storage. Reasonable requests for the defendant shall not be denied, provided the defendant allows the USPO to install internet monitoring software. He pays for the software and the defendant submits to random searches of his computer, electronic devices, and peripherals. The only way that he can use the internet is for employers' computers on an employer's on a premise, provided that he's not self-employed. So, like, he can't possess stuff, but he might be able to get stuff if he allows them to install software. It's kind of confusing. Anyway, he has to go through a SO treatment program that he has to pay the costs for. He can't look at any kinds of exotic material online. And he has to do polygraph testing to maintain that he's in compliance. And that's for 20 years. And that's on top of all the other standards of having to check in, having to have active registry information, having to, you know, knowing that if he violates, he can go back. So for 20 years, that will be their life. He'll be under a very tight microscope. And he can't live with his kids because you can't be supervised with your child. You can't supervise your husband while you're asleep. And if he's living in the same house as the kids, and if Anna's asleep, he's technically not supervised. So if Anna wants to live with him, she would have to make a choice between her and her kids. And it sounds like she's at a point where she's going to pick her kids, which is, I guess, a promising step forward. I know there's a lot of people in Anna's life that want her to move on and divorce him. I can tell you today, as I look at everything in the documents, that there's no divorce records that have been filed. She still holds multiple businesses jointly with Josh in their names. And she recently opened a new business in April. That's part of what Josh's companies are. So she still has financial ties to him. And as far as her address was still listed in Arkansas. So nothing has happened legally yet. That doesn't mean it won't in the future. But it's at least the most promising update I have on Anna at this point is that she's actually thinking about her future. I mean, when you're looking at 30 years of, I don't know that I'll be able to live with my husband, what do? Do you pick your husband or do you pick your kids? I would pick my kids, but I would have picked my kids from the beginning. And I would have left him right away. But that's me. That's not Anna. So do you think that eventually she'll actually leave? I mean, I talked to someone yesterday, literally, who told me they didn't think that she would ever leave him. Like I said, some people think that she'll eventually divorce him. And the person I talked to said, not possible. I said, maybe she'll wake up. And they said, I doubt it. So it's like, some people just are so like, they don't believe she'll change and she'll see it. And then this source is saying, yes, she's considering it. So maybe there's some truth in both. Who knows? But what are your thoughts? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.